I'm Lauren. I live a zero waste lifestyle, which essentially means that I don't send any trash to landfill, and I haven't for the past 2 years. And this kind of all started when I was a student at NYU. I studied environmental science, and my senior year, there was a girl in one of my classes, and every day she would bring like this plastic clamshell full of food, and a plastic bag, and a plastic fork and knife, and a plastic water bottle, and then like every night she would throw it in the trash. And we were environmental studies students, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, you're messing everything up. And so I would get really upset and watch her do this class after class. And then one night I went home like feeling particularly frustrated, and I went to make dinner, and I opened my fridge, and I saw that everything that I had was packaged in plastic. And I felt like the meanest person in the entire world. I felt like such a hypocrite. I was getting upset at this girl for throwing out all this plastic, and I made just as much. So I kind of decided in that moment to quit plastic. And it's not like as easy as it sounds. It's not like a one-day quit plastic kind of thing. It was like I had to learn how to not only reduce the amount of plastic that I use, but find alternatives to things that were conventionally packaged in plastic, like toothpaste and deodorant and cleaning supplies. And then when I was researching recipes, I came across this blog called The Zero Waste Home. I don't know if any of you know about it. Started by a woman named Bea Johnson. She's out in Mill Valley, California, and she has a husband and 2 kids and has like no garbage. And so I was super inspired by her, and I was like, if a woman with 2 kids and a husband can do it, I can do it. So it's been 2 years and I haven't made any trash. And it kind of all started with me doing exactly what you did, looking at my garbage and kind of figuring out what is it that I was producing and how do I reduce it, because you can't solve a problem until you know what the problem is. So for me, it was kind of the same. I had like a lot of organic food waste, and I had a lot of food packaging. So I learned how to do things like shop in bulk, and I learned how to compost, and that basically got rid of like all of my trash. And then I learned how to do things like make my own toothpaste that you guys will learn how to do, and make my own deodorant, my own lotion, my own cleaning products. And once you do that, it's really astonishing how little trash there actually is. But a lot of these products that we use every day come in packaging that isn't recyclable by the city. And so we just have to throw it into landfill and just kind of like let it get into the oceans, and that sucks in my opinion. I don't like that. So yeah, that's kind of how it all started.
I don't know if anyone saw that ad campaign from Poland Spring. It was so depressing that that's something that they were bragging about, that New Yorkers bought like 1 billion Poland Spring bottles or something like that. I used to buy water all the time and not really think about it, and my boyfriend doesn't, and it's like a thing, and I started noticing that he just wouldn't ever buy water, and I was like, okay, I can do this too. And it's really not difficult once you, and then the plastic bag thing, it's sort of like, I used to be a little bit easier, well, I'll reuse it or whatever, and now it's just, I have so many tote bags and I just always have one, and it's super easy. But so those are kind of, to me, I feel like those are the basics. I don't know if you would agree. And then beyond that, like, what are the other basic things, like the sort of first steps?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I actually started in a very similar way. I was dating someone at the time, and he used to get so mad at me for using plastic water bottles, and so he bought me a Brita filter, which now I still wouldn't use. I use like this thing called a Soma, which is all glass and really beautiful and compostable. But he also used to do toothpaste made of baking soda, and I would look at him and be like, you're disgusting. I can't believe you would use that. It's so gross. And now that's what I use. So yeah, there are 3 things that I do that I suggest for living a lower trash lifestyle. First one would be actually, like you said, looking in your trash and seeing what it is, and then trying to find ways to reduce that. The second thing that I suggest is what I like to call picking the low-hanging fruit. So doing little things in your everyday life to reduce your impact. So using a reusable bag instead of a plastic or paper bag, using a reusable water bottle instead of plastic water bottles, bringing your own fork instead of using plastic forks, making your lunch every day. Like little easy transitions, not a hard thing. And then the third thing would be the actual DIY. So learning how to transition out products that are not recyclable, like toothpaste tubes. Like what do you do with those? You can't recycle them or anything. So learning how to make your own toothpaste, your own body lotions, your own face scrubs, and it's actually like a really great, fun process. And I think it's really cool because products today have so much toxic crap in them that you don't know what it is. And I feel like it's really empowering to have control over what you're putting in and on your body, which is why I love making my own products.
Yeah, I noticed that just from like a health perspective too, when I was being mindful of all the stuff that comes in this packaging is all the stuff that we don't want to be eating anyway.
Yeah.
So it's almost like an easier way. You just think about the waste you're creating and not have to have that emotional attachment, like I shouldn't be eating this or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Okay, so what is in your bag?
I usually carry like a mason jar. It's my best friend. Not really, but kind of. And then I usually have like a stainless steel straw or a fork if I want to eat something out.
If you accumulate things during the day, you just bring it home.
Yeah, like for instance, if I eat out and I have like, I don't know, an apple and I have a core left over, like the cool thing about bringing my mason jar is that it's like a portable compost bin, so I just put it in there.
What are like compost? I think a lot of people don't do, and especially when they're on the go, so that's a really good tip. But are there any other things that are commonly going in people's trash that could be, you know, composted, recycled, upcycled?
I see a lot of people like plastic forks. Those are recyclable in New York City now. So that's, you know, a big thing that people don't do enough is actually recycle things that are totally recyclable. So like the plastic clamshells that this girl in my class was throwing out every day, totally recyclable. And so like just recycling things that are made of plastic that would otherwise take up so much space in the landfill is a really good thing to start doing if you don't already. And composting is like the greatest thing ever. It's super fun, and you just keep all your food scraps in your freezer, and I bring them to the farmers market every Saturday. But starting soon in New York City, they have curbside compost pickup, which is going to make life super awesome.
Have you noticed, since you started this 2 years ago, have you noticed a shift, or what's your experience been out in the world constantly being, like I'm one of those people like, I don't need a bag, thanks, or I try to be nice about it, but sometimes it's weird, but I feel like there is a little bit of a winds of change where people are more open to that. But when you're, you know, what are you always saying, like, I don't need a bag, can you pour my coffee in here, like all of those things, how do people react to
I think like there's always the like little like brow furrow, like what are you doing with your jar, you weirdo? But like it's cool, it starts a dialogue, which I really like. I like people asking me like, oh, why are you using a jar? And I'm like, oh, I don't use a jar because I don't like using single-use items. And that they're like, oh cool, here's like 25 cents off your coffee, or like here's a free coffee, and I'm like, that's awesome. And then if I go to bars, for instance, and I order a drink, I'll always say something like no straw please, or like no napkin, or no coaster. And sometimes that's a little frustrating for bartenders because it's like this habitual, it's like a reflex, you know, straw in the drink. But it turns out that like most bartenders that I've had conversations with don't actually like using straws. They say it like changes the flavor of the drink and they're so unnecessary, like a huge waste product. And so it's just like one of those things that most people are like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know. It's like, why do we do these things? I don't know. And then it gets them thinking about it.
That's so cool. I don't know a ton about this, but there was some kind of composting scandal with they had a program in Park Slope that they were testing out the curbside composting, and I heard that the city outsourced the composting to a different company, and then that company was actually collecting the compost and putting it in the trash. So one thing that I feel like we all face is the sort of heartbreak that comes with trying to, you know, really going out of your way, making a lot of effort, and feeling like the system isn't fully doing its part, and just, you know, wanting to ask if you have any advice. Okay, so for example, you had clothing tags in your bag. So I was at a vintage store in Greenpoint, and their tags were not paper, they were like stickers, and I was thinking about that. It's like those can't probably be recycled because they're stickers, and you know, just there's the little things like telling companies like, oh, you know, this is something you can do to improve your sustainability, or you know, bigger citywide community. What are your tips for how to like make the conversation bigger and make the impact bigger? Because also, for example, like, you know, we're all composting our like one bag full per week, but then we think about restaurants or you know, these commercial kitchens that could actually be more impactful than just each of us.
I like to live in a way that I like to always think like the only person that I can control in life is myself.